Hi everyone! I am going to show you today how I made this convertible bag. You can use it as a shoulder or crossbody bag with the long strap, or you could tuck the strap into the bag and use these smaller straps to wear it on your arm. I also have a written pattern for this bag. I will link that below. To make this bag, you'll need 780 grams of weight 4 acrylic yarn, a 5mm crochet hook, a darning needle, and 2 stitch markers. So to get started, I am going to make a slip knot. Put the slip knot on my hook, and I am going to chain 4. Now that I've got my 4, I'm going to insert into that first stitch and slip stitch, so pull through both loops. So now we've got a little circle. I'm going to chain 3. This is going to count as our first double crochet of this round. That initial chain 3 will always count as the first double crochet. Now I'm going to yarn over and double crochet into that middle space. So yarn over, insert, pull up a loop. So we've got 3 loops on our hook, pull through 2, pull through 2 for a double crochet. Now I'm going to yarn over and double crochet again into that little loop. I'm also going to be crocheting over top of this little tail in the back. So crocheting over top of the little tail is just going to weave it in for us, so it'll give us a little bit less work at the end. So now I have 3 double crochets all together, so that's a granny stitch or a granny cluster. Now we're going to make our corner, so I'm going to chain 1, yarn over, and place 3 double crochets into the middle of the loop or the circle. So this is going to be our corner space, and we've got 2 granny stitches. I'm going to chain 1 again, yarn over, and place 3 double crochets. I also wanted to note that for this project, I do only chain 1 for the corner spaces. I know a lot of people chain 2 or 3 when they make granny squares, but for this project, I like to keep the corners really tight since we're making a bag. So that's why I only chain 1. But if you're more comfortable chaining 2 or chaining 3 and you want to do that, you totally can. It won't really change what the bag looks like or the structure of the bag too much. So if you choose to, you can do that. So now that we've got the 3 granny clusters, I'm going to chain 1, yarn over, and we're going to do 3 more double crochets for our 4th and final granny stitch of this round. So now we have 4 granny stitches, chain 1. Now we're going to connect to that first double crochet, which is our first chain 3. So we're going to find the 3rd stitch, so 1, 2, 3. We're going to insert into that 3rd stitch and slip stitch. So pull through that 3rd stitch, pull through our loop. So that's our first round. I'm going to tie off to change colors. So I left a long enough tail to be woven in at the end. I also like to pull on this tail in the back because it kind of tightens up the middle of the circle a little bit. Now I am going to go in with my next color, which is going to be this green for me. So I am going to make a slip knot. I'm going to insert my hook into a corner space. So I'm not going directly into the stitch, I'm going into that little space in the corner. put the slip knot on my hook. And I'm going to pull that through. And I'm going to chain 3. So now we've got our second color attached, and we've got our first double crochet. Now I'm going to yarn over and go right back into that corner space and put 2 double crochets. So now we have formed half of a corner. Now we're going to go into that next corner space and create another corner. So I'm going to yarn over, go into that space, and place 3 double crochets. Chain 1, since this is a corner space, yarn over, and place 3 more double crochets in that same corner space. So we just formed our first full corner of this round. Now we're going to do that in both of these spaces. So yarn over, insert, I'm crocheting over the ends as I go. So I'm placing 3 double crochets in this next corner space. Chain 1 and place 3 more double crochets in that space. Now we've got another corner. Now we're going to yarn over and do the same thing in that next space. So we have 3 full corners formed. Now we just need to finish off this last corner space where we started. So I'm going to yarn over, go into that space, and double crochet 3 times to make a granny stitch. Chain 1, find the top of that chain 3, and we're going to slip stitch into it to attach this corner. So now we're done with round 2. I'm going to tie off and change colors. And now we are going to do the third and final round for these squares. So I am going to take my color that I want to do the rest of my bag in, making a slip knot. I'm going to insert into a corner space, put the slip knot on my hook, pull through, and chain 3 to attach and to make our first double crochet. Now I'm going to double crochet 2 more times into that space to create the first half of that corner. So now in this round we have a side space. So in the side space we're going to place a granny stitch, so 3 double crochets. So yarn over and 3 double crochets into that side space. Now we've got another corner, so I'm yarning over and going to place 3 double crochets in that corner space. Chain 1 and 3 more double crochets in that corner space to finish out the corner. Now we've got another side space, so I am going to place 3 double crochets in that space. And again, I'm just crocheting over my ends to make my life a little bit easier and give me less to weave in at the end. Now we're at a corner. So in the corner, we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. In the side space, just 3 double crochets, and so on until we get to this point, and I will meet you back there. So I just completed the entire round up until that first or last corner space where we started. So to finish off, I am going to place 3 double crochets into that corner space. Chain 1 and attach to the top of that initial chain 3. So slip stitch, and now we are going to tie off. So this is how we'll make our squares. We need 19 of these granny squares with 3 rounds. So I am going to make 18 more. I'll meet you back here when you have 19 squares. So now that we have 19 squares in total, we're going to arrange them into the formation that we want to join them in. So we're going to have 5 rows of 3 and then 2 squares on either side. So I'll show you what that looks like. So I'm just going to mess around with different colors next to each other and rearrange them until I like the way that they look. We have 5 rows of 3, and then we have the 2 little wings on either side. So once you have your squares in this formation and you're happy with how all of the colors look together, then you are good to go ahead and start joining. So I'll show you how to start that in the next clip. So now we're going to start joining our squares. So I'm going to flat slip stitch them together, but if you have another joining method that you're more comfortable with, like just sewing them together, mattress stitch, single crochet, anything else that you like better, you can join them that way. The way that you join them doesn't really affect the finished product that much. So if you have something you're more comfortable with, just go ahead and do that to join them in this formation. Since I'm flat slip stitching, I will go ahead and show you how I do that. So I am going to start with these 2 little squares over here, the little wing. So I'll show you how to flat slip stitch these. So I'm starting with this little wing piece. So just to make it easier, I'm just going to twist it so that it's facing me. So to get started with the flat slip stitch, we are starting with a slip knot. So I'm going to create a slip knot, and we are going to put that on our hook. And to join, we're using the same exact hook we used to make all of the squares. I'm still using my 5mm, and I am joining with just the color that we used for our border. So I'm putting that on our hook. I like to start with the square on my right hand side. So I'm going to find that chain 1 in our corner right there. So we have our front loop and our back loop in the chain 1. So I'll show you a little bit closer. You can see that there's that front loop and then a back loop back here. So I am going through the back loop only. I'm going in through the top. So we see the back loop there, going in through the top. Now I'm going to move the working yarn, and I'm just going to put that between our 2 squares. So that's where it will always be when we're joining this way. So it's going to stay there in the middle. So now I'm going to find that chain 1 on the opposite square, and I am going to go through the top, back loop only. So there's the chain 1. I'm going through the back loop. So now we have 3 loops on our hook. And now I am going to pull through all 3 loops since this is a slip stitch, and we are joined. So again, we're going to keep that working yarn right in the middle. Now I'm going to find the next stitch on our right hand square. So here's the next stitch, and I'm going to go through that back loop. Now I'm going to find the next stitch on the left hand square, and I am going to go through the back loop. So now we've got the 3 loops on our hook again, and I am just going to pull that working yarn through. So we're going to keep going. So I am going to find the next stitch on the right side square, go through the back loop, find the next stitch on the left square, go through the back loop, and pull through. So that is how we're going to continue. So as you can see, it makes this flat join between the squares. And I find this joining method to be really strong. So I am going to keep going and join the rest of these 2 squares together, and then I will meet you back here when I'm... Alright, so I just joined these 2 squares. Because these squares are going to be this way on our bag, we're not going to be joining anything on either side of them. So now that I've reached the end, I am going to tie off. I also wanted to clarify that we started in the chain 1 corner stitch down here, and when you go up, you stop in the chain 1 corner stitch. So the chain 1 corner stitch is the last stitch that I worked into. So I am going to tie off. So now we have these squares joined, our little wing on the side. So the next thing I'm going to do is the same thing on the other side. So I have these 2 squares that are going to be my wing piece on the other side. I am just going to join those together quickly, and then I'll meet you back here. So now that I have both of my little side pieces all joined, I am going to move on to the body of the bag. So I am going to join them horizontally first before doing these longer vertical lines. So it doesn't really matter what end you start at. I'm just going to start at the end closest to me, starting here and then joining this way. So we're going to join the same way that we joined these little wing pieces. So I'll show you one more time what that will look like. But if you feel like you've already got it and you just want to go ahead and jump into joining all of these together, there will be timestamps in the description so you can jump ahead. So I'm starting with a slip knot on my hook. I'm going to go into the chain 1 space of that first square in the corner and go through the back loop only. Move that yarn to be in the middle. Alright, we've got the working yarn in the middle. Now we're going to the left square, and I am going to find the chain 1 space and go through the back loop only. And now I'm going to pull through. And I am just going to keep on going, back loop only. So when I get to the end of these 2 squares, I'll show you how I move on and continue across, joining through the next 4 squares. So I am coming up on that chain 1 corner space, so I am going to go ahead and join there like I normally would. Alright, so we have those squares all joined together. Now to move on to these next 2 squares, we are going to keep on going, joining with a flat slip stitch, as if these aren't 2 separate squares. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So to keep going, we're going to find the chain 1, the corner space of that next square, go in through the back loop only, and same for this next one. We're going to find that chain 1 corner space and go in through the back loop only. So we're treating these as if we were just continuing with these squares. So pull through all 3 loops. So now we've got these connected, and we're just going to keep on going up the sides of these squares. So again, just find the next stitch, go in through the back loop, and continue flat slip stitching all the way up the squares. So once I reach the end of these 2 squares, I'm going to do that exact same thing to then join with these 2 squares. So then we'll have these 2 rows joined horizontally. After that, I will tie off and just keep going down the rows, joining them horizontally. So once I get them all joined that way, I'll meet you back here and show you what it looks like, and then I'll show you how we start to join them vertically. Alright, so I have all of my squares joined horizontally, but they are not joined vertically yet. So I am going to do the exact same thing I did to join them horizontally, and I am just going to do that up these 2 seams so that they are completely joined vertically. So I am going to do that, and then I will meet you back to attach our little side pieces. Alright, so now all of my squares are fully attached both ways, so we just have this one big rectangle. So our next step is to attach our little wing pieces on the side. So we are going to attach to that middle row. So I am going to flat slip stitch a seam right here, and then the same on the other side in that same row. It's a little hard to see since it's so wide, but they are just going to be directly across from each other to make little wings on both sides. So I'm going to do that really quickly on both sides, and then I will meet you back here. Alright, so we have all of our squares all joined together here. Now we're going to flip our panel over to the wrong side. So this is where we're going to be turning this flat panel into a 3D shape. So you're going to choose one of your sides to start on. It doesn't really matter which one. And we're going to take this little wing piece and attach it here to our side pieces. So we're going to do that on either side. And this is going to create the side of our bag so that it will be a square shape, or a rectangular shape rather. So that's what it's going to look like. So to do that, we're going to use the flat slip stitch to join the same way we joined the rest of the bag. And now I'm folding so that these 2 edges will be lined up. So to join, I am going to start in these corner spaces down here. So I'm going to insert my hook, move the working yarn to the middle, insert my hook into the corner space across from the one that I'm in. I'll have 3 loops on my hook, pull through. So this one might be a little bit tricky just because we have all of the ends kind of in our way. Alright, so we're going to move on to the next space, which will be, again, a corner space. So insert through the next space on the right side, and then insert through the next stitch on the left side. Once you have those 3 loops, we're going to pull through. So now we're just going to find the next space, go through the back loop only, go through the back loop only of the stitch on the other side, and join. So this is just like the rest of the flat slip stitch that we did on this bag. So I'm going to keep going, and then I will meet you back here when I get all the way to the top of this seam. Alright, so I am finished with that seam. I tied off. So this is how mine looks so far. So I'm going to do that exact same thing over here on this other side. I'm also going to repeat that exact same process on the opposite side of the bag, flat slip stitching up either side. to create our rectangle. So I'm going to go flat slip stitch those together, and then I will meet you back to start the top of our bag. So we have our bag fully joined together. So this is what the side of the bag should look like. So now that we have our bag totally joined, we're going to start working on the border. So to do that, I'm going to go to the side. Doesn't really matter which side you start on. So I'm going to find the middle double crochet of this square. So here's the middle granny cluster. Here is the double crochet in the middle of the granny cluster. I'm going to insert my hook through that stitch, just like that. Now I'm going to take my border color, make a slip knot, stick that on my hook. Now we're going to pull that through and chain 1. So now we are going to start working on the border. So I'm going to place a single crochet in every stitch all the way along the border. So I'm going into that next stitch, and I'm going to weave in some of these ends as I go. So I'm going to hold that against the back of my work and single crochet. And I'm just going to keep on going all the way around. So I just got to where we started. So this is how mine looks so far. You can already see just the row of single crochets at the border really started to kind of clean up the edges. So now I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch that we started in. Chain 2. And now I'm going to half double crochet into every stitch all the way around. So to half double crochet, you yarn over, insert your hook, pull up 3 loops, and pull through all 3. So I'm going to keep going half double crocheting all the way around, and then I'll meet you back when I get to that initial chain 2. So I just reached my last stitch before that chain 2 where we started. So I am putting that last half double crochet. So now in that next stitch is the chain 2 where we started. So I am going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 2. Chain 2. And I am going to half double crochet into every stitch. So I am going to do 2 more rows of half double crochet for a total of 3 rows altogether of half double crochets. So I just finished my 3rd row of half double crochets. So this is what my bag looks like so far. So now I am going to slip stitch into the top of that first chain 2, and I am not going to tie off this time. So slip stitch, chain 1. Now I'm going to single crochet into the next 6 stitches. So I am going to pause right there for a second. I'm going to take a stitch marker, and now I am going to count 32 stitches away from this first stitch. So here's the stitch I just single crocheted in. We're starting with this first one. I'm going to count 32. I am going to put a stitch marker into the 32nd stitch from the single crochet. All right, now that I have that 32nd stitch marked, I'm going to reinsert my hook. Now I'm going to chain 40. So what we're doing right now is chaining 40 to create our first mini handle. So chain 40, and then we're going to attach in that stitch with the stitch marker. Okay, so I just got to 40. I am going to make sure that my chain is not all twisted up. Now I'm going to slip stitch into that stitch that has the stitch marker in it. All right, so now we're attached and we have our first little mini strap here. So now I can take the stitch marker out and get that out of our way. We're going to use this again in a few minutes. So now I'm going to single crochet in the next 12 stitches. So I single crocheted in the last 12 stitches. So now we're going to do the same thing that we did on the other side. So I am going to count 32 stitches away from this last single crochet and put the stitch marker in it. All right, I've got the stitch marker in the 32nd stitch away from our single crochet. So now to create the strap on this side, I am going to chain 40 and then slip stitch it into this stitch with the stitch marker. Right now I'm again going to make sure that my chain isn't twisted and slip stitch into this stitch with the stitch marker and attach the strap to the body of the bag. Now I'm going to single crochet in the remainder of the stitches until that first single crochet. So now we're right back to where we started. I'm going to slip stitch So this is what our bag looks like so far. Now I'm going to chain 2 and half double crochet into every stitch all the way around. So I just got to that chain 40. I'm still just doing a half double crochet in each stitch all the way across. So that's how it looks so far. So I'm going to keep going and do a half double crochet in every stitch all the way around. When I get back to the beginning, I'm going to slip stitch to join, chain 2, and do a half double crochet in every stitch all the way around until I have 3 rows of half double crochet. So we're on row number 1 now. Once I finish this one, I'll do 2 more, and then I'll meet you back here when I've got 3 rows in total. So I am coming up on that last stitch right before our first chain 2 or half double crochet. So this is what my bag is looking like now. So I've got my smaller straps. So now we're going to tie off and then do our longer strap. So to do that, I am going to slip stitch into the first half double crochet, and I am going to tie off. So I'm going to leave a pretty long tail just to be woven in at the end. So there is my bag so far. So we are going to set our bag aside for right now. And we are going to make our long strap. So to do that, I am going to make a slip knot. And now I am going to chain 120. So after chaining 120, I'll meet you back here. All right, so I have chained 120. So now I am going to turn my work and I'm going to work right back down the chain, doing a half double crochet in every stitch. So I'm not going to chain anymore or anything like that. I'm just going to yarn over, go into that next stitch, and work a half double crochet. So I'm going to keep going all the way down the chain, working half double crochets. We will be doing 3 rows of half double crochet, but I will meet you at the end of this row when I get to the bottom of the chain. So I just put my last half double crochet into that last stitch, So this is my first row of half double crochets. So this is how my long strap is looking so far. Again, we're going to do 3 total rows of the half double crochets, so we're going to do 2 more. So to do that, I am just going to turn and half double crochet into that same stitch. For the strap, I am not doing any chain 2 because I want to keep it as tight at the bottom as possible because we're then going to be sewing this onto our bag later. So now I'm just going right back up the strap, doing half double crochets in all of my stitches. So once I get all the way to the top, I am going to put a half double crochet in the last stitch, then turn and half double crochet all the way back down. And once I get to the end, I'm going to tie off, but I'll meet you back when I get to the end. So 2 more rows and then I'll meet you back here. So I just finished my 3rd row, so my strap is finished. This is how wide it's going to be. I just placed my last half double crochet, so I am going to tie it off. If you would like to make your strap thicker, you definitely could. To do that, you would just keep going up and down with rows of half double crochet until it's as thick as you would like it to be. And our long strap. So our long strap is going to get connected here on either side. So to do that, you could single crochet it on, you could slip stitch it on. I am going to whip stitch it. I just feel like that is the easiest way to do it. So I am going to just take a needle. Now I am just going to cut myself off some yarn of our base color. And I am going to use that to sew our strap on. So to do that, I am going to find the middle. So once I have it where I want it, I am just going to start attaching it. So I am just going down the edge of the strap, attaching it to the body of the bag. So I've got to the end, it is now attached. I have a little extra yarn still left on my needle, so I'm going to go through just one more time. So now that I'm attached, I am going to tie a knot and leave these longer pieces to be woven in at the end. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side and sew the strap to the other side of the bag. So I'm just going to move it over. Find the middle. And I am going to sew it on right there in the middle. So I'm going to sew this one on and then I will meet you back here. Alright, so I have my long strap attached now. So we've got the body of our bag, our shorter straps, and now our longer strap all attached. So our final step is to just add a single crochet border around either side of the bag to clean it up. So I am going to make a slip knot. It doesn't really matter which side of your bag you start on, so you can start wherever you would like. So I like to start somewhere around here. So I am just going to stick my hook into a random stitch over here, kind of close to the corner of where the long strap meets the short strap. I am going to pull my yarn through and chain. So from here on out, I am placing a single crochet in every single stitch all the way around the edge of the bag. So as I go, as I'm coming across some of these loose ends, I am going to weave them in by holding them flat against my work like this and single crocheting over top of them. So I'm going to keep going, single crocheting all the way around until I reach where I first started here, and then I'll meet you back. So I put a single crochet in every stitch all the way around. And I also weaved in some of those ends as I went. Though this step isn't 100% necessary, I do feel like it really helps to clean up the edges around the bag, and it helps to kind of blend the strap into the rest of the bag and blend it into the other smaller straps. So now that I have made it to that stitch right in front of my first single crochet of this round, I am just slip stitching into that first single crochet, and I am going to tie off. So I am going to repeat that step on the other side, just going around the perimeter of the bag and putting single crochets in every stitch, weaving in some of the ends as I go. But after you do that, you are completely finished.